For 32 years, I thought I knew everything about my husband. We raised 3 children together. We built a successful life. We were partners in every sense of the word. But at 55 years old, I discovered that the man I'd been sleeping next to for over 3 decades was a complete stranger. And it all started when I found a pair of my own underwear hidden in his luggage. Before I tell you this whole unbelievable story, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. We share real stories from real people every week. And trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next in this absolutely shocking tale. My name is Margaret, and this is the story of how my entire life unraveled in the space of a single weekend. The discovery. It was a Friday evening in October. My husband Robert had just returned from a business trip to Atlanta. He'd been gone for 4 days, which wasn't unusual. Robert was a senior executive at a consulting firm, and travel had always been part of his job. Over the years, I'd gotten used to his absences. We'd developed our rhythm around them. Robert came through the door looking tired, as he usually did after traveling. He kissed me on the cheek, asked what was for dinner, and hauled his suitcase upstairs. This was our normal routine. He'd unpack, shower, and then we'd have dinner together while he told me about his trip. Except this time, he didn't unpack. He came downstairs 20 minutes later, showered and changed, but his suitcase was still sitting in our bedroom. During dinner, I mentioned it. "You didn't unpack yet?" He looked startled for just a moment. "Oh, I'm exhausted. I'll do it tomorrow morning." That should have been fine, but something about his reaction bothered me. That flash of surprise, quickly covered. The way he changed the subject immediately, asking about our daughter's new job. After dinner, Robert fell asleep on the couch watching television. He was snoring softly, completely out. I went upstairs to get ready for bed, and I saw his suitcase still sitting there, unopened. I don't know what possessed me. In 32 years of marriage, I'd never gone through Robert's things. I trusted him completely, but something felt off. Some instinct I didn't even know I had was telling me to look. I unzipped the suitcase quietly, as if Robert could somehow hear me from downstairs. The contents looked normal at first. Dirty clothes that needed washing, his toiletry bag, some papers from work. Then I saw it. A flash of red fabric tucked into the side pocket. I pulled it out and my stomach dropped. It was a pair of my underwear, red lace bikini briefs that I'd been looking for weeks ago. I'd assumed they'd gotten lost in the laundry or maybe fallen behind the dryer. But here they were, in Robert's suitcase, in a trip to Atlanta. My hands started shaking. Why would Robert pack my underwear? The thought that immediately came to mind was the one I didn't want to consider. Was he having an affair? Had he taken my underwear to give to another woman? But that didn't make sense. Why would he take used underwear from me to give to someone else? And why my specific underwear? If he wanted to buy lingerie for a mistress, he'd buy new things. Unless the underwear wasn't for someone else. Unless it was for him. That thought hit me like a physical blow. Was my husband wearing my underwear? I sat on the edge of our bed, holding the red lace in my hands, trying to make sense of it. Robert had never shown any interest in women's clothing. He was masculine, traditional, the kind of man who wore suits to work and flannel shirts on weekends. This didn't fit anything I knew about him, but people have secrets. Clearly, Robert had secrets I knew nothing about. I went back to the suitcase and searched more thoroughly. In another side pocket, I found a phone. Not Robert's regular phone, which I could hear buzzing downstairs where he'd left it on the coffee table. A second phone. A burner phone, like criminals use in movies. My heart was pounding now. I turned it on. It wasn't password protected, which surprised me. Maybe Robert never thought I'd find it. The text messages told a story I couldn't have imagined in my worst nightmares. The messages. The messages were all between Robert and someone saved in the contacts as D, just the letter D, nothing more. I started scrolling, and what I read made me feel sick. D, can't wait to see you next week. I've been counting the days. Robert, me too. Every trip away from you feels like forever. D, did you bring what I asked for? Robert, of course. I know what you like. D, you're so good to me. I don't know what I'd do without you. Robert, I'd give you anything. You know that. The messages went back months. Loving messages. Intimate messages. Plans for meetups in different cities. References to hotels and secret rendezvous. My husband was having an affair. That much was clear. But I still didn't know with whom. I kept scrolling, looking for some indication. A name, a photo, something that would tell me who this D person was. Then I found it. A selfie D had sent to Robert 2 weeks ago. And D was a man. A young man, probably in his early 30s. Attractive, with dark hair and a bright smile. He was shirtless in the photo, showing off a toned body. And the caption read, "Thinking of you. Can't wait until Atlanta." I stared at that photo for a long time, trying to process what I was seeing. My husband was having an affair with a man. My husband, who I'd been married to for 32 years, who I'd had 3 children with, who I'd shared my entire adult life with, was in a relationship with a man young enough to be our son. How long had this been going on? The messages went back at least 6 months on this phone. But was there more? Had there been other phones? Other men? Had our entire marriage been a lie? I kept reading. The messages were affectionate, sometimes explicit, always intimate. They talked about their time together, about how Robert felt free when he was with Dee, about how Dee understood Robert in ways nobody else did, about their plans for the future, as if Robert had a future that didn't include me. There was one message that particularly gutted me. Robert had written, "Being with you is the only time I feel like myself. The rest of my life is just performance." Performance. 32 years of marriage, 3 children, a whole life together. And it was all just performance to him. I found photos too. Robert and Dee together, in hotel rooms, at restaurants in cities where Robert had supposedly been on business. One photo showed them hiking somewhere beautiful, mountains in the background, both of them smiling and happy in a way I hadn't seen Robert look in years. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. My husband had been living a double life, and I'd had no idea. The confrontation. I don't know how long I sat there looking through that phone, reading message after message, seeing photo after photo. Time seemed to stop. My whole world had tilted on its axis, and I couldn't find my balance. Eventually, I heard Robert stirring downstairs. He was waking up. In a few minutes, he'd come upstairs to bed, and I'd have to decide what to do. Part of me wanted to put the phone back, pretend I'd never seen it, give myself time to process before confronting him. But a larger part of me was angry. Furiously, overwhelmingly angry. How dare he? How dare he live this lie while I devoted my entire life to our marriage? When Robert came upstairs, I was sitting on the bed with the phone in my hand. He saw it immediately. His face went white. "Margaret, I can explain." "Can you?" My voice sounded surprisingly steady despite the hurricane of emotions inside me. "Can you explain why you've been having an affair? Can you explain this secret phone? Can you explain the man in these photos?" He sat down heavily in the chair by the window, his face in his hands. "How did you find that? Does it matter?" "I found my underwear in your suitcase, Robert. My underwear. On a trip where you were apparently meeting your lover." He looked up at me, confused. "What?" I pulled the red lace from where I'd set it on the bed. "Explain this." Something like relief crossed his face, which made no sense to me. "Oh, that. I can explain that. I'm waiting." He took a deep breath. "Dee likes it when I bring things of yours. Says it makes him feel closer to our real life, like he's part of it, even though he can't be." The explanation was so bizarre I almost laughed. "So you've been stealing my underwear to give to your boyfriend?" "He's not my boyfriend." Robert's voice was quiet. It's complicated. I've got time." "Uncomplicate it for me." What followed was the longest conversation of our marriage. Robert talked and I listened, and everything I thought I knew about my life crumbled around me. The truth. Robert told me he'd known since he was a teenager that he was attracted to men, but he'd grown up in a conservative family in the 1970s, a time and place where being gay wasn't just frowned upon, it was dangerous. His father was a military man who made his views on masculinity very clear. Robert learned early to hide his true feelings. He dated women in high school and college, trying to fit the mold expected of him. When he met me at 23, he genuinely cared for me. He thought if he tried hard enough, if he committed fully to the life he was supposed to want, his attraction to men would fade away. "I did love you," he said, and I noticed the past tense. "I still do, in my way. You're my best friend, Margaret. You've been my partner through everything. But I've never been attracted to women. Not you, not anyone. I thought I could make it work through sheer willpower. For over 30 years, he'd been pretending. Every intimate moment we'd shared, he'd been thinking of someone else, or thinking of nothing, just performing the role expected of him. So our entire marriage has been a lie, I said flatly. No. He looked at me earnestly. The partnership was real. The friendship was real. The life we built, the children we raised, all of that was real. My feelings were real, just not romantic. And Dee? When did he come into the picture? Dee, whose full name was Daniel, had been a junior associate at Robert's firm. They'd worked together on a project 2 years ago. The attraction had been immediate and mutual. They'd tried to keep it professional, but eventually they'd given in. For 2 years, Robert had been conducting a full relationship with this man. They saw each other whenever Robert traveled. They talked every day. They'd even discussed Robert leaving me so they could be together openly. Why didn't you? I asked. Why stay married to me if you wanted to be with him? Robert was crying now, tears running down his face. Because I'm a coward. Because I'm 57 years old and the thought of coming out, of telling our children, of facing my family and colleagues, terrifies me. Because this life, this performance as you called it, is all I've ever known. The thought of being honest, of being myself publicly, feels impossible. I felt a strange mixture of anger and pity. Anger at the betrayal, at the decades of lies, but also pity for this man who'd spent his entire life hiding, so afraid of judgment that he'd built an elaborate false life instead of being authentic. What about what I wanted? I asked. What about my life? Did it ever occur to you that I deserved a husband who actually loved me? Who actually wanted me? You stole that from me, Robert. You stole 32 years that I could have spent with someone who truly loved me. I know. His voice was broken. I know. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The aftermath. That night was the first of many difficult conversations. Over the next few weeks, Robert and I had to navigate the wreckage of our marriage and figure out what came next. The hardest part was telling our children. We have 3 kids, all adults now. Michael is 30, Sarah is 27, and Emma is 24. They deserve to know the truth, but how do you tell your children that their father has been living a lie their entire lives? We sat them down together, all of us in the living room of the house where they'd grown up. Robert told them everything. That he was gay, that he'd been having a relationship with a man, that he and I were separating. Their reactions varied. Michael was angry, feeling betrayed on my behalf. Sarah cried, struggling to reconcile the father she'd known with this new information. Emma, our youngest, was surprisingly calm. She told us later she'd suspected for years that something was off, though she'd never been able to articulate what. All of them needed time to process. All of them had questions. Did this mean their childhood was fake? Did their father really love them? What would happen to our family now? Robert assured them his love for them was absolutely real, perhaps the most real thing in his life. Being their father had brought him genuine joy and pride. That wasn't performance. That was truth. As for our family, well, that's complicated. We're still figuring it out. Moving forward, Robert and I are divorcing. After 32 years of marriage, we're untangling our lives, dividing our assets, figuring out what comes next. It's strange, ending a marriage at 55. I'd always assumed Robert and I would grow old together. We'd retire, travel, become the kind of elderly couple who finish each other's sentences. Instead, I'm starting over alone. Robert is planning to move in with Daniel eventually. He's finally going to live openly as a gay man. Something he should have done decades ago. Part of me is happy for him. He deserves to be authentic, to love freely, to stop performing. But another part of me is angry. Why did his journey of self-discovery have to cost me 32 years of my life? Why did he get to figure himself out while keeping me in the dark? Why didn't he give me the choice? These are questions I'm working through with a therapist. She tells me it's okay to hold multiple feelings at once. To have compassion for Robert's struggle while also honoring my own pain, to understand his reasons while still acknowledging the harm he caused. I'm also working through my own identity. For 32 years, I defined myself primarily as Robert's wife. Now I have to figure out who Margaret is on her own. It's terrifying and liberating in equal measure. What I've learned. Looking back now, I wonder if there were signs I missed. Times when Robert seemed distant or distracted. Moments when his reactions seemed off. But honestly, I think he was just very good at hiding. And I was very good at trusting. I've learned that you can spend decades with someone and still not truly know them. That people are capable of maintaining elaborate deceptions for years. That the life you think you're living might be completely different from reality. I've learned that sexuality is complex, and that people struggle with identity in ways I never had to consider. Robert's journey isn't uncommon. Many people, especially of his generation, spent years or decades hiding their true selves because society gave them no other choice. But I've also learned that understanding someone's struggle doesn't mean accepting the harm they caused. Robert's fears and shame don't excuse the betrayal. His difficulties with his identity don't negate my pain at being deceived. Most importantly, I've learned that I'm stronger than I thought. 6 months ago, I believed my world would end if I lost Robert. And in a way, it did end. The life I thought I had is gone. But I'm still here. I'm still standing. I'm still moving forward, even when I don't know where forward leads. Where I am now. It's been 8 months since I found those panties in Robert's suitcase. 8 months since my world turned upside down. Robert has moved out. He's living with Daniel in a condo downtown. Our divorce will be final in a few more months. We're civil with each other, especially around the kids. But the easy friendship we once had is gone. Too much has happened. Too much trust has been broken. The kids are adjusting. They have relationships with both of us, though it's complicated. They're still processing, still figuring out what this means for how they understand their childhoods and their family. I'm adjusting too. I've reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with over the years. I've joined a book club. I've started taking art classes, something I always wanted to do but never had time for when I was busy being the perfect corporate wife. I've even started dating, which feels surreal at 55. The dating world has changed dramatically since I was last single in my early 20s. But it's also exciting. I'm meeting new people, having new experiences, discovering parts of myself I'd forgotten existed. Some days are hard. I wake up and forget for a moment that Robert isn't there. I reach for him in bed and touch empty space. I start to tell him something before remembering we don't share those casual intimacies anymore. Other days are good. I feel free in ways I haven't in years. I make decisions without consulting anyone. I eat what I want, watch what I want, go where I want. My time is my own. My life is my own. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I'll meet someone new, someone who actually wants me the way Robert never did. I don't know if I'll learn to be happy alone. I don't know what my relationship with Robert will look like 10 years from now. What I do know is this. I survived. I found out that my entire marriage was built on lies, and I survived. I watched my carefully constructed life fall apart, and I survived. I had to reimagine my identity and my future at an age when most people are settling into comfortable routines, and I'm surviving. That's worth something. That's worth a lot, actually. Final thoughts. If you've watched this far, thank you for listening to my story. If you're going through something similar, know that you're not alone. Betrayal comes in many forms. Secrets destroy in countless ways. But we survive. We adapt. We build new lives from the ruins of old ones. And we learn that sometimes discovering the truth, no matter how painful, is better than living a beautiful lie. I don't regret my marriage entirely. It gave me 3 wonderful children. It gave me decades of experiences and memories, even if they're complicated now by what I know. But I do wish Robert had been honest from the beginning. I wish he'd given me the choice about what kind of life I wanted to live. Still, I can't change the past. I can only move forward. And that's what I'm doing, one day at a time. To anyone watching who's hiding their true self out of fear, please, be honest. Not just with others, but with yourself. Life is too short to spend it performing a role instead of living authentically. And if you're afraid of judgment, remember that the people who truly love you will adapt. It might take time, but real love adjusts. And to anyone who's been betrayed, you will survive this. I promise. The pain is real. The anger is justified. The grief is valid. But you're stronger than you know. And on the other side of this nightmare, is a life that's authentically yours. Not perfect, but real. And real is better than perfect any day. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone out there who needs to hear it.